A wealthy man unable to have children brought two homeless young girls to the wedding of his former fiancée. Amidst the laughter, let's take a moment before we embark on this tale. Please share in the comments where you're tuning in from. Delight in the tale. Richard Montgomery remained motionless in his home office, the cream-colored envelope quivering gently in his grasp. The embossed golden letters glimmered in the afternoon sunlight filtering through the window, their elegance almost taunting him. Elizabeth Carter and William Harrington cordially invite you to join them. Richard's jaw clenched as he scanned the invitation once more. Elizabeth, the woman who had vowed to share her life with him, who had gazed into his eyes and declared, forever, only to turn away when forever didn't encompass children. She had said it on that rainy night 2 years ago, her voice steady as she twisted the engagement ring off her finger and set it on his coffee table, a gesture of finality that continued to haunt his dreams. Now here she stood, beckoning him to observe her as she united with another, a person who could presumably provide her with the family she yearned for so intensely. I can't believe she had the audacity, Richard muttered, flinging the invitation onto his mahogany desk. He brushed his fingers through his salt and pepper hair, the all-too-familiar sting of rejection blossoming in his chest yet again. The phone vibrated with a sudden buzz. It was Marcus, his longtime collaborator and dearest companion. Did you receive it? Marcus inquired directly. Have you seen the wedding invitation? Indeed, Richard responded, his tone intentionally calm. Right into the recycling bin where it truly belongs. You should go, Marcus said, catching him off guard. Richard let out a derisive laugh. And why would I put myself through that kind of agony, just to prove to her that you've moved on, that her rejection didn't break you? Yet it did, Richard mused, though he would never voice it openly. He merely stated, I'm not interested in playing games, Marcus. This is serious, Richard. It's the end. Moreover, Marcus went on, his voice adopting a more cheerful cadence. Isn't it enticing to arrive exuding confidence, radiating success, and entirely moving on from her? Once the call ended, Richard positioned himself by the expansive windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, his eyes fixed on the Seattle skyline as the sun dipped below the horizon. His reflection gazed back at him, embodying the essence of success by every conceivable metric. By the age of 45, he had transformed Montgomery Innovations into a prominent force in the technology sector of the Pacific Northwest. He possessed riches, power, admiration, yet he found himself utterly isolated. The doctors conveyed the news when he turned 30. An illness from his youth had rendered him unable to have children. He believed he had come to terms with it, or so he assumed, until Elizabeth made it evident that his condition was a non-negotiable issue. Richard glanced at the invitation once more, his thoughts drifting to the possibility of bringing someone along. If he were to go, and that remained a significant uncertainty, who would accompany him? The prospect of confronting Elizabeth solo was daunting, yet the notion of showing up with a stranger seemed just as disheartening. As he tucked the invitation away in his desk drawer, an unusual resolve began to envelop him. Perhaps Marcus had a point. Perhaps it was the moment to demonstrate to Elizabeth that he had endured her rejection, that he had discovered joy in spite of what she had stripped away from him. But how is that possible? The thought hung in his mind while he filled a glass with scotch and made his way to the terrace of his penthouse. The refreshing evening breeze caressed his skin while the city lights started to shimmer in the distance. He murmured to the vast expanse above, resolute in his determination not to let her triumph. This time, no. Unbeknownst to Richard as he vowed to himself, fate was poised to step in with an unforeseen twist, igniting a series of occurrences that would test his understanding of family, love, and the essence of belonging. 2 days later, Richard continued to grapple with the conundrum of the wedding invitation as he exited a late business dinner. The rain lashed against the Seattle streets as he rushed toward the parking garage, his mind consumed by thoughts of Elizabeth. He nearly overlooked them. 2 diminutive silhouettes nestled together under the shelter of a store awning on the opposite side of the street. Something compelled him to stop and examine more intently. They were young ones. 2 girls, one maybe 10 and the other barely 6, huddled closely beneath a worn blanket. The elder sibling wrapped her arm around the younger one, who nestled her head against her shoulder. Richard remained motionless, the rain drenching his costly coat. What could possibly lead two young children to be wandering the streets alone at this hour? As though attuned to his stare, the older girl lifted her eyes. Even from afar, her gaze conveyed a fierce sense of protectiveness that resonated with him as well. His essence. Without pausing to consider his decision, Richard stepped onto the street. "Are you both all right?" he inquired, pausing at a considerate distance. The older girl stood tall, her body language radiating suspicion. "We're fine," she replied sharply, her tone more composed than anticipated. "It's not wise to be out here by yourself. The hour is late, and the rain intensifies, drumming against the windows with a relentless rhythm." Richard waved his hand towards the restaurant situated behind him. "Allow me the pleasure of treating you to dinner." "There is no necessity for charity," the older girl replied, while the younger one peeked out from under the blanket, her eyes wide with curiosity. "It's not an act of charity," Richard remarked softly. "Simply one person assisting another." The older girl appeared to ponder this. At last, she introduced herself. "I'm Lily," she declared. "This is my sister, Emma." Emma gave a small wave, her other hand tightly holding a well-loved teddy bear. Palm. "My name is Richard. A cozy diner just around the corner serves up some of the best hot chocolate you can find." 20 minutes later, Richard observed quietly as the girls eagerly consumed their meal. Under the unforgiving glare of the diner lights, he finally perceived them with clarity. Their garments showed signs of wear yet remained tidy, their faces bore smudges but appeared far from unhealthy. They dined with unexpected elegance, napkins gracefully placed on their laps, soft expressions of gratitude directed towards the waitress. "Where might your parents be?" Richard finally inquired. Lily's eyes gleamed with a careful awareness. "They have departed." "Are you all set with a place to stay tonight?" A brief pause. "We take charge." Richard acknowledged with a nod, choosing not to delve deeper. There was something about these girls that resonated with him, their grace in the face of adversity, their palpable connection. Suddenly, an unexpected idea flashed through his mind. It was so absurd that he nearly burst into laughter. Could he? Negative. It was absolutely wild. As he gazed at the two forsaken children, he couldn't shake the feeling that their plight mirrored his own experience of being left behind by Elizabeth. A suggestion formed on his lips, and he found himself speaking it aloud. "I must be present. This weekend marks a significant occasion, a wedding. I could use some company." Lily's gaze sharpened. "What type of business?" Richard made the distinction clear without delay. "I simply want to say that I have this spacious home, and you both deserve a secure environment. Perhaps we can assist one another." "How long will it take?" Lily inquired, her instincts of guardianship unmistakably heightened. "Only the weekend," Richard remarked. With a gentle tone, Emma leaned in and whispered to her sister, "No strings attached, you can leave any time." Lily absorbed the words, then pivoted to face Richard once more. "We'll consider it." Richard jotted down his phone number on a napkin. "If you choose to proceed, feel free to call this number at any time, day or night." As he strolled back to his vehicle, Richard pondered what had driven him to such a decision. Bringing two street children to Elizabeth's wedding? It was pure chaos. Yet somehow, it seemed just as it should be. At exactly 9 a.m. the next morning, Richard heard the doorbell ring. He had tossed and turned through the night, plagued by the nagging thought that the girls would never reach out. However, at 7:30, his phone illuminated with a message originating from a payphone. "We will attend, kindly provide the address." He began to unveil. The door opened to reveal Lily and Emma, standing stiffly on the doorstep, their small backpacks held tightly in their hands. In the bright light of day, they appeared even more diminutive, as Lily stood firm, her determination a stark contrast to Emma's innocent wonder. You came, Richard said, his surprise evident. We talked about it, Lily responded, her tone deliberate and thoughtful. Emma believes we ought to have faith in you. At this moment, Richard moved aside to allow them to come in. Greetings and a warm invitation to my abode. The girls' eyes grew wide as they absorbed the expansive penthouse, complete with sweeping views of the city. Emma inhaled sharply, her surprise evident, while Lily held her composed demeanor. Yet, Richard noticed a brief glimmer in her eyes, maybe a hint of recognition. Lily inquired, her gaze sweeping over the immaculate, minimalist surroundings, "You live here alone?" "I do," Richard replied. "There's ample space, allow me to guide you to your accommodations." He guided them along the corridor to a guest suite featuring 2 beds. Emma sprang onto one without hesitation, while Lily lingered in the doorway, evaluating the scene. "What is your true motivation behind this?" she inquired with a directness that left no room for ambiguity. Richard pondered his response thoughtfully. "What is the reality? I got an invitation to my former fiancé's wedding. She walked away from me, or so I believed, because I am unable to have children. You believe that showing off 2 orphans would stir her envy," Lily concluded, her tone cutting. Richard recoiled. Framed in that manner, his strategy appeared harsh and cunning. "That was my first impression," he confessed, "but now that you're present it appears incorrect." There was a quality in his sincere confession that appeared to ease Lily's defenses just a bit. "We ought to prepare," she remarked. "Emma requires a bath." After 2 hours, Richard made arrangements for a stylist to come by. The penthouse he owns. As the woman took measurements and displayed fabric samples, he was captivated by the effortless way the girls engaged in the process. Emma chuckled softly as the stylist took her measurements, while Lily engaged in a surprisingly refined conversation about color choices. Lily suggested that navy blue would enhance the beauty of Emma's eyes. "Could I possibly have something in emerald for myself?" The stylist offered a satisfied nod. "Your taste is truly remarkable, young lady." Richard observed this interaction with increasing intrigue. These were not just any street children. Their demeanor, their choice of words, the way they held themselves, all suggested a history that was much deeper. Freed from the grips of homelessness. As they enjoyed their lunch, Richard delicately inquired. "Lily, where did you acquire your knowledge of color coordination?" A flicker of concern swept over her features before she regained her poise. "Literature," she replied with a hint of ambiguity. "The library offers free access to reading materials for everyone." Upon the arrival of the new clothes that afternoon, the change was remarkable. Adorned in a modest yet sophisticated emerald dress, Lily resembled any privileged youth from Richard's elite circle. Emma, dressed in her charming navy blue dress with white trim, radiated cuteness. "You both look fantastic," Richard remarked, a sincere warmth in the sound of his voice. Emma radiated joy, yet Lily's reply took him by surprise. "We understand our roles, Mr. Montgomery," she replied softly. "Keep in mind, this is only a fleeting moment." As Richard observed them scrutinizing their reflections in the hallway mirror, he pondered the secrets these enigmatic girls might be concealing, and why, against his better judgment, he felt an ever-growing sense of protectiveness towards them both. The day of the wedding dawned with radiant sunshine pouring through the penthouse windows. Richard straightened his tie, taking a moment to scrutinize his reflection one final time. The last couple of days spent with Lily and Emma turned out to be unexpectedly enjoyable. Even though Lily remained cautious, the girls had settled into his home with surprising comfort. "Mr. Montgomery," a soft voice from the doorway broke the silence. "Are we heading out shortly?" Richard turned, and his breath hitched in his throat. Emma stood there in her navy dress, her hair styled in flawless ringlets, accented by a delicate ribbon. She possessed an innate elegance that transcended her youth. "You look stunning, Emma," he said with genuine warmth. She smiled, showcasing a gap where her front tooth once was. Lily provided her assistance. She has a remarkable talent for all things related to hair. Just as expected, Lily emerged behind her sister. The emerald dress beautifully enhanced her auburn hair, styled in an elegant half-updo. She appeared graceful, composed, and remarkably mature for her age. "We're ready," she said plainly, yet Richard could sense a hint of unease in her tone. "Don't forget our agreement," she added. "We fulfill our roles, participate in this wedding, and then you assist us with." "As I recall," Richard cut in, fully conscious of Emma's keen attention. The sisters had at last disclosed their desires in return. Assistance in locating a distant relative who may be willing to provide shelter. "I always honor my commitments." The journey to the Harrington estate unfolded in serene silence. In the reflection of the rearview mirror, Richard observed the girls absorbing the meticulously maintained scenery of Seattle's most affluent neighborhood. Emma gestured enthusiastically towards the fountains and gardens, while Lily scrutinized the scene with a discerning gaze. "What caused your fiancé to walk away?" Emma interjected abruptly, shattering the stillness. Richard almost veered off course. "Emma," Lily reprimanded. "It's all right, Richard," he said, as he collected his thoughts. "Elizabeth longed for children. I am unable to have any. At times, individuals seek various aspirations from their existence." "How unfortunate," Emma stated. "You would make a wonderful father." Her naive remark resonated profoundly with Richard. Just as he was about to reply, they reached their destination, a grand mansion surrounded by expansive grounds, all beautifully adorned for an extravagant wedding celebration. "Wow," Emma whispered as they neared the entrance, where elegantly dressed guests mingled on a vibrant red carpet, and photographers snapped pictures of each arrival. Richard experienced a fleeting surge of anxiety. What could he have been considering, introducing two children into this predicament? Yet, as he gazed down at the girls, he found himself captivated by their remarkable change. Lily stood confidently, her stance impeccable, as Emma beamed gently, grasping her sister's hand. "Are you prepared?" he inquired. Lily gave a slight nod. "Keep in mind, we are your nieces coming over from Boston. Our parents are embarking on a journey overseas." Richard did not propose this cover story. Lily had meticulously created it on her own. As they made their entrance onto the red carpet, all eyes were drawn to them. Soft murmurs flowed among the gathering. Richard led the girls onward, his hands resting softly on their shoulders. Then he spotted her, Elizabeth, engaged in conversation with guests by the entrance. She exuded brilliance in her pre-ceremony attire, her blonde locks arranged with grace. Upon catching sight of Richard, her smile wavered for just a moment. Her gaze shifted to the girls, a look of confusion clear on her face. She then politely excused herself and made her way towards them. "Is that you, Richard?" She spoke, her voice steady and commanding. "Your arrival was quite a surprise to me." "I wouldn't miss it," he replied with a certain ease. Elizabeth's eyes were drawn to Lily and Emma. And who might these charming young women be? Before Richard could respond, Lily advanced with impeccable grace. "I'm Lily, and this is my sister Emma," she stated, her voice resonating with clarity and assurance. "It's a delight to make your acquaintance, Ms. Carter." "The venue is truly stunning," Elizabeth blinked, clearly surprised by Lily's elegant reply. "Thank you," she managed, her gaze flickering uncertainly toward Richard. Emma pulled at Elizabeth's dress. "Your flowers are beautiful. Are those peonies blooming?" "My mother adored peonies." Elizabeth's expression transformed from bewilderment to a more resolute demeanor. "How delightful," she remarked, her tone implying the opposite. "Richard, I wasn't aware you had such young companions." "There's much you remain unaware of regarding me at this moment, Elizabeth," Richard responded, a surprising wave of pride washing over him as he stood next to the two girls. The magnificent ballroom shimmered with dazzling crystal chandeliers and exquisite floral arrangements, radiating opulence and sophistication from every angle. As Richard led Lily and Emma through the throng, whispers trailed behind them like unyielding specters. Who are those kids? Did Montgomery take on an adopted child? I believed he was unable to have children. Richard sensed a surge of guardianship as they moved through the crowd of inquisitive glances. Emma gripped his hand firmly, while Lily strolled alongside them, exuding an air of calmness, her gaze keenly absorbing every detail with a subtle intensity. A booming voice called out, "Richard Montgomery." Gregory Winters, Elizabeth's uncle and a prominent figure in Boston's banking scene, approached with a champagne flute in hand. "I was starting to wonder if you would show up, Gregory." Richard acknowledged with a courteous nod. "I wouldn't dream of missing it." Gregory's eyes moved toward the girls. And who could these young ladies possibly be? Before Richard had a chance to reply, Lily moved ahead with an elegant smile. "My name is Lily, and this is my sister, Emma. It's a delight to make your acquaintance." Gregory's thick eyebrows lifted in surprise at her eloquent introduction. "Well, aren't you articulate?" His gaze sharpened as he examined her features. "It's interesting, but you bring to mind a certain person." Lily's smile stayed in place, yet Richard observed her shoulders tighten. "I guess I have one of those faces, don't I?" Gregory murmured, his skepticism evident. "So, what's your connection to Richard?" "They are my guests," Richard interjected with a smooth confidence. "That is the only thing of significance." Emma, having been silently watching, abruptly gestured towards the string quartet nestled in the corner. "Isn't it Vivaldi's Four Seasons, specifically the spring movement, that they're playing?" Her delicate features brightened with joy. "My mother would often play that on the piano." Gregory's demeanor transformed from doubt to astonishment. "Are you familiar with classical music, young lady?" Lily tightened her grip on her sister's hand, a silent warning, yet the harm had already been inflicted. Gregory's curiosity was ignited. "Montgomery," he murmured, his voice dropping to a whisper. "What is the true origin of these children?" Richard experienced a sudden surge of annoyance. "Is it significant?" "We kindly ask for your understanding as we take our leave." As they departed, Richard felt Elizabeth's gaze upon him from the other side of the room, her eyes tracking their movements with an increasing sense of doubt. He bent down to meet Lily's gaze. "Is all well?" Lily's carefully crafted exterior momentarily faltered. "Our presence here was a mistake. Individuals are posing an excessive number of inquiries." "We'll be fine," Richard reassured her, though doubt was starting to creep into his mind. What were the girls concealing? Their table awaited them, adorned with name cards and intricate centerpieces that exuded elegance. As they settled into their seats, Elizabeth made her entrance, joined by her fiancé, William Harrington. Statuesque, classically attractive, exuding the self-assured demeanor of inherited wealth. "Richard," Elizabeth remarked, her tone feigning warmth. "I would like to take a moment to properly introduce you to William." The two men engaged in a strained handshake. "These must be the little girls everyone's been discussing," William said, his voice dripping with condescension as he gazed down at Lily and Emma. Emma beamed with a touch of naivety. "Your wedding is very beautiful, but Lily says it's XXX Rove." "Extravagant," Lily supplied, then added with an air of perfect innocence, as if someone were compelled to demonstrate something. William's smile grew more restrained as Elizabeth's cheeks turned a deep shade of crimson. "Richard," Elizabeth spat, abandoning any semblance of politeness. "A whisper, just between us." She guided him to a secluded nook, far from the bustling crowd. "Which game are you currently engaged in?" she insisted. "Arriving with kids. Are they really yours? Would it even make a difference?" Richard shot back. Elizabeth's gaze sparked with intensity. "Don't overthink it. I'm not sure what you're up to." Clearly, those girls are from affluent backgrounds, evident in their manners and knowledge. They're not just ordinary kids. Richard sensed a shiver run through him. Elizabeth had picked up on it as well. "I'm keeping an eye on you, Richard," she cautioned. If there's anything unlawful about your dealings with those girls, I will uncover it. As she walked away, Richard turned to look back at their table. Lily was observing him closely, a knowing expression on her face that implied she grasped precisely what had just occurred. In an instant, Richard found himself grappling with a situation far more intricate than he had ever expected. The wedding ceremony unfolded with flawless elegance, yet Richard remained oblivious to the vows being spoken. His thoughts wandered repeatedly to Elizabeth's pointed remarks and the enigma enveloping his youthful companions. As the elaborate dinner unfolded, Richard watched Lily and Emma maneuver through the formal place settings with remarkable skill. Emma effortlessly selected the appropriate fork for each course, while Lily maintained a charming conversation with the elderly couple across from them. "My granddaughter is about your age," the woman remarked to Lily. "Do you go to Westlake Academy? Most families around here send their kids there." "We've been homeschooled," Lily said effortlessly. "Our education has taken a different path." The woman nodded with satisfaction. "Clearly, your parents have raised you well. You express yourself remarkably well." Emma, who had been silent, suddenly brightened at the sound of the orchestra starting a new piece. "Lily, it's Tchaikovsky, remember when we attended the Nutcracker?" Lily's face momentarily showed concern before she regained her composure. "Yes, Emma, that was quite some time ago." Richard caught the slip, another piece of the puzzle that didn't align with the narrative of children supposedly living on the streets. As dinner drew to a close, a distinguished man in his 60s approached their table. His silver hair and tailored suit radiated sophistication. The atmosphere shifted as he entered, a palpable hush falling over the gathering. "Judge Harrison," Richard acknowledged with a respectful stance. "Montgomery," the judge responded with a nod, clearly surprised to find him present. Elizabeth's decision took everyone by surprise. His gaze wandered to the young women. And who could these ladies be? Just as Richard was about to respond, the judge's eyes grew a bit wider as he zeroed in on Lily. "My word," he murmured. "You bear a striking resemblance to Victoria Blackwood. It's quite remarkable." Lily's complexion drained of color. Emma glanced up at her sister, a look of bewilderment etched on her youthful features. "I think you might be wrong," Lily stated, her tone unwavering even as unease flickered within her. Judge Harrison examined her closely, his expression focused, as if trying to recall something significant, and I seldom forget a face, particularly one tied to such a prominent case. He offered a courteous nod before proceeding, creating an awkward stillness behind him. "Who is Victoria Blackwood?" Richard inquired softly. "Nobody," Lily replied, her words tumbling out in haste. He's confused. As the orchestra struck up a waltz, guests gracefully made their way to the dance floor. Richard, noticing that Lily could use a diversion, rose and extended his hand. "May I have this dance?" To his astonishment, she agreed, accompanying him to the perimeter of the dance floor. Richard fumbled as he positioned his hands correctly, suddenly aware that he hadn't thought about the possibility that Lily might be unfamiliar with the waltz. His worry turned out to be unfounded. Lily mirrored his lead flawlessly, her movements elegant and refined. "You dance as if you've received formal training." Richard watched intently. Lily's gaze locked onto his, assessing. "Perhaps I'm simply quick to grasp things." "And your sister is well versed in classical music and the nuances of formal dining," Richard continued gently. "Lily, you can place your trust in me." "Who are you, truly?" For a brief moment, a flicker of vulnerability crossed her features. Then her defenses returned. "We're just two girls, Mr. Montgomery. No one of consequence, merely trying to get by." Across the room, Elizabeth observed them dance, her expression shifting to one of concern. She leaned in to murmur something to William, who acknowledged her with a nod before quietly exiting the ballroom, phone in hand. As the final notes faded away, Richard caught sight of Emma at their table, her demeanor strikingly quiet. "What's the matter?" he inquired, kneeling next to her. "I miss home," she murmured, tears beginning to gather in her eyes. Our true sanctuary. Before chaos ensued, Lily stepped in swiftly. Emma, do you recall our conversation? There are certain matters we must keep to ourselves. Richard glanced between the sisters, the fragments of understanding gradually aligning. They were not merely homeless children, they were fleeing from something. Or perhaps it was someone else. As the night unfolded, a sense of unease settled in. His hasty choice could have jeopardized everyone's safety. The evening continued with lively dancing and an abundance of champagne. Richard felt an undeniable pull towards the enigma of Lily and Emma, relishing the moments spent in their presence. Emma's earlier gloom had faded, replaced by a delightful curiosity about the beauty surrounding them. Mr. Montgomery, she said, playfully tugging at his sleeve as they lingered by the dessert table. Shall we indulge in the chocolate fountain? Richard smiled warmly. Absolutely, and feel free to call me Richard, Emma replied with a bright smile. Richard, she said, savoring the name as she spoke. That was my father's middle name. This small revelation, the first intentional piece of information about their past, felt important. As Richard assisted Emma with the chocolate fountain, being careful not to drip on her dress, he noticed Lily observing them with a complicated expression, a mix of caution and desire. She likes you, came a voice beside him. Richard turned to find Elizabeth, her wedding gown shimmering under the ballroom lights. Emma is a sweet child, Richard replied cautiously. That's not what I intended. Elizabeth's tone was cutting. The elder one. She gazes at you as if on a quest for answers. Her eyes are narrowed. I've been inquiring, Richard. These girls are a mystery to everyone. They emerged unexpectedly, reminiscent of those heartbreaking news reports on child trafficking. Richard was overwhelmed by a wave of anger. That's quite a serious claim, Elizabeth. Is it really? She arched an eyebrow. William has connections in child services. With a single call, was there an issue? Lily emerged beside them, her youthful face displaying an unexpectedly stern demeanor. Elizabeth hesitated for a moment, clearly caught off guard by the confrontation with someone so young. No trouble whatsoever, merely reconnecting with a longtime acquaintance. Lily's stare was steadfast. It didn't seem welcoming. Elizabeth's smile grew strained. Quite the observant one, aren't you? Now, do enlighten me, where are your parents? Elizabeth, Richard cautioned. Our parents are no longer here, Lily replied bluntly. However, that doesn't label us as charity cases or victims. Elizabeth inclined her head slightly. You express yourself with the wisdom of someone far beyond your years. I find myself pondering the reason behind that. Just as Lily was about to reply, the wedding planner arrived, asking for Elizabeth to join her for the cake cutting. With a final, wary look, she left the scene. She's a threat, Lily whispered, her voice barely above a murmur, once Elizabeth had walked away. Richard nodded in agreement. I'm starting to understand that. He paused, then continued, Lily, if you and Emma are facing any difficulties, Lily's demeanor shifted. We can manage on our own. You shouldn't need to, Richard replied softly. Your children. A flicker ignited in her gaze. Was it pain, or maybe a sorrow long hidden away? The moment our parents passed, we shed our childhood. The sheer truth of her words left Richard speechless. As the reception went on, he caught sight of Emma, stifling a yawn. In search of a serene spot adorned with cozy chairs, he settled down with the girls, distancing themselves from the clamor. Emma nestled beside him, her tiny head gradually resting against his arm as she drifted into slumber. She trusts you. Lily remarked, her tone gentler than he had ever heard. And you? Richard inquired. Lily pondered for a moment. I'm making progress. They sat together, enveloped in a comfortable silence, observing the festivities from afar. Richard experienced an unfamiliar sense of peace, a feeling that had eluded him for years. Your ex-fiancé keeps glancing our way, Lily remarked. She's envious. Richard stole a look at Elizabeth, who was clearly observing them while feigning interest in a guest. "Not of me," he remarked. "Of what she believes we embody." "A family," Lily murmured, nearly to herself. The term lingered in the air between them, delicate and rich with significance. Richard gazed down at Emma, who was resting serenely against him, then turned his attention to Lily's cautious yet softening demeanor, sensing a change within his heart. What had started as a pretense to navigate an awkward situation began to evolve. Now, as he sat among these enigmatic girls, Richard understood that it had transformed into something altogether different. Something genuine and surprisingly valuable. As the wedding reception reached its climax, Richard spotted William navigating through the throng toward Elizabeth. They spoke softly, William revealing something on his phone that made Elizabeth's eyes widen. She quickly glanced over to Richard, who was seated with the girls. "We should go," Richard murmured to Lily, a feeling of unease settling in his stomach. Lily turned her attention to where he was looking and nodded, softly rousing Emma. "Time to go, Em." As they prepared to step out, Gregory Winters approached them, his previous cheerfulness now overshadowed by a grave demeanor. "Montgomery, a name," he said, guiding Richard a bit away from the girls. "I made some inquiries." Gregory spoke in a hushed tone. "Those children. There's a scenario you may not fully grasp." Richard's heart raced. "What situation?" "The Blackwood case," Gregory remarked with significance. "Surely you recall Charles and Victoria Blackwood, the philanthropists who perished in that tragic accident 2 years ago." The name fell into place. Judge Harrison had brought it up before. Richard had a faint memory of news articles regarding a rich couple who perished in a yacht explosion, though he hadn't kept up with the details. "What about them?" Richard inquired with a hint of caution. They had 2 daughters, and Gregory kept watching Lily and Emma, who vanished from their grandparents' care not long after. Whispers of foul play and inheritance conflicts filled the air. Richard sensed the ground shifting beneath him. "Do you really think so?" Gregory murmured. "I'm convinced. That child has Victoria Blackwood's face, same eyes, same presence. The Blackwoods held a significant place in Boston society. I encountered them on multiple occasions." Richard cast a glance at Lily, who was observing them intently. With a focused gaze, he held Emma's hand tightly. "Why are you telling me this?" Richard inquired. "Because." Gregory's demeanor shifted to one of seriousness. "If those are indeed the Blackwood girls, there are individuals searching for them. Influential individuals. And Elizabeth's fiancé has just placed a phone call." Richard expressed his gratitude to Gregory briefly before turning back to the girls. "We are departing. Immediately." They advanced quickly toward the exit. However, Elizabeth positioned herself in their way. William, glancing at her, let out a sigh. "Leaving so soon?" she inquired, her tone sweet yet laced with an underlying tension. "The authorities might want to have a word with you first." Lily's grip on Emma's hand grew firmer. William wore a sly grin, his cell phone peeking out from his pocket. "Whatever you believe you understand, Elizabeth," Richard replied calmly. "You're about to err." "Am I?" she challenged. "The Blackwood girls have been missing for more than a year. Their grandfather has promised a significant reward for any information regarding their location." Emma gazed up at Lily, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. "Lily?" Richard experienced a rush of protectiveness. "We're leaving," he asserted firmly, positioning himself between Elizabeth and the girls. "The police are already on their way," William said with a hint of arrogance, accompanied by a representative from the Blackwood family. Richard made a quick decision. Leaning down to Emma's eye level, he whispered, "Do you trust me?" She nodded without a moment's doubt. "Then follow me," he said, casting a quick glance at Lily, who responded with a subtle nod. Richard guided them toward the kitchen rather than the main exit. A server, whom he had discreetly slipped $100 bill earlier, held a service door ajar. They slipped through, emerging into a secluded parking area where Richard's car awaited, keys already in the valet's possession. As they drove away, Richard glanced in the rearview mirror. Emma appeared frightened, while Lily's expression conveyed a sense of resigned determination. "Lily?" Richard said softly. "I believe it's time for you to share the entire truth with me." She gazed out the window at the flickering streetlights, her youthful face mirroring a lifetime of wait. "We can't return to your apartment," she said at last. "They'll check there first." "I know," Richard replied. "I own a cabin, roughly 2 hours away." Lily nodded, then turned to confront him completely. "The Blackwoods are our parents," she confessed, her voice scarcely above a whisper, "and our grandfather is the reason we are fleeing." The next morning arrived with overcast skies and a soft drizzle at the cabin tucked away in the woods near Seattle. Richard found himself at the charming kitchen table, 2 mugs of steaming hot chocolate placed before him, as he patiently awaited the girls' awakening. The previous night had left them all utterly spent. Upon reaching the secluded cabin, Emma drifted off to sleep almost instantly in one of the spare bedrooms. Lily, though clearly exhausted, had hesitantly consented to rest, securing a promise from Richard that they would converse in the morning. The sound of tiny footsteps broke the silence, pulling him from his thoughts. Emma stood in the doorway, her hair a delightful mess from sleep, holding her beloved teddy bear close. "Good morning," Richard said softly. "Hot chocolate?" Emma nodded eagerly and settled onto the chair. "Is Lily still sleeping?" "I'm here," Lily replied, stepping into the kitchen with the cautiousness of someone far beyond her years. She glanced at the mugs of hot chocolate before turning her gaze to Richard. "You want to know everything?" "Only what you're comfortable sharing," Richard replied, sliding a mug toward her. Emma glanced between them, feeling the tension in the air. "Can I tell him about Mommy? And Daddy Lily, please?" Lily paused, her thoughts evident, then nodded slowly. "Our daddy built structures," Emma started, cradling the mug to warm her hands. "Tall ones adorned with plenty of glass. And Mommy created melodies and assisted others." "Charles and Victoria Blackwood," Richard said softly. "Your father was an architect, and your mother was a concert pianist who ran a children's arts foundation." Lily's eyes widened slightly. "After we departed from the wedding, Richard confessed that you had been researching." I felt the need to comprehend. Lily appeared to come to a conclusion. "Following the death of our parents, we moved in with our grandfather, Edmund Blackwood. Initially, he seemed benevolent, but then..." She looked at Emma, evidently weighing her words carefully. "He began altering our names, our looks. Discussion of our parents was strictly forbidden. His fixation on controlling every aspect was overwhelming." "He was cruel," Emma interjected. "He snatched my teddy and claimed I was too old for toys." "We found out he was attempting to seize control of our trust funds," Lily continued, her voice growing more resolute. "He required guardianship to gain access to the funds our parents bequeathed us. One evening, I caught a glimpse of him discussing plans to send us to different boarding schools overseas." "So you fled," Richard deduced. Lily nodded. "We've been in hiding for nearly a year, taking refuge in shelters, occasionally with generous strangers. We were managing just fine until..." A notification sound from Richard's phone broke her train of thought. He cast a quick look at the screen, his brow furrowing. "What is it?" Lily inquired, her attention piqued. Richard pivoted the phone to reveal the display to them. On the screen was a news article with the headline, "Blackwood heiress is spotted at Harrington Carter wedding," accompanied by a blurry photo of the girls. "Elizabeth," Richard muttered. "She must have tipped off the press." Lily's face drained of color. "The search for us has begun." Just as Richard opened his mouth to reply, another notification popped up. A message from Marcus. "Tune into Channel 8, immediately." Richard swiftly located the remote and activated the cabin's modest television. Elizabeth's face dominated the screen, poised outside the wedding venue in her wedding dress, her expression carefully crafted to convey concern. I was taken aback to learn that these innocent children had been exploited by my ex-fiancé. She was telling a reporter that these vulnerable girls deserved to be with their legal guardian, not to be caught in the crossfire of a devious revenge scheme. The camera shifted to reveal William beside her, nodding with a serious expression. Upon recognizing their identities, I promptly reached out to the authorities. The girl's grandfather has been extremely anxious. The scene shifted to reveal an elderly man of notable presence, Edmund Blackwood, his expression a blend of deep concern and wisdom. My granddaughters have endured significant trauma following the loss of their parents. They require professional support and a sense of stability. A generous reward awaits anyone who can provide information that leads to their safe return. Richard turned off the television, his jaw clenched in frustration. They're portraying me as a kidnapper. Emma's lower lip quivered. Are they going to take us away? Richard glanced at the scared child, then at Lily, whose gaze was a blend of fear and defiance. In that instant, he resolved to make a choice that would alter the course of their lives forever. No, he said firmly. No one is taking you anywhere you don't want to go, I promise. Lily studied his face, searching for any hint of deception. Why would you assist us? You hardly know us. Richard pondered his response thoughtfully. Because sometimes, family transcends blood ties. It's a matter of who remains by your side when the rest have walked away. The rain lashed against the cabin, the windows rattling as Richard made hushed phone calls in the corner, while the girls nestled together on the sofa. Emma had drifted off against her sister, worn out from the morning's revelations. Lily stayed alert, her gaze fixed on Richard. That was my lawyer, Richard finally stated, resuming his seat across from them. And a private investigator, I trust. They are investigating your grandfather's actions and the legal implications surrounding your guardianship. Lily nodded, softly caressing Emma's hair. He will secure the finest legal representation. He always gets what he wants, but not this time, Richard said with a calm resolve. Yet, I must grasp every detail if I'm to assist you. Lily's gaze turned introspective. In the wake of our parents' passing, the initial weeks spent with grandfather felt relatively ordinary. As ordinary as one could expect amidst the sorrow. Yet, soon enough, he began to alter the familiar routines. Our routines turned inflexible, our devices were confiscated, and we lost touch with our friends. Did he cause you pain? Richard inquired gently. Not in a physical sense, Lily explained. Yet he. She fought to articulate her thoughts. He was wiping away our identity. Our recollections. The heritage of our parents. He even dismissed our caregiver, who had been part of our lives since my arrival. Why? Richard inquired softly. The money. Lily replied matter-of-factly. Our parents entrusted everything to Emma and me. Grandfather can't access it without our oversight. Her gaze turned steely. One night, I overheard him on the phone. He was discussing plans to liquidate our father's company as soon as he obtained guardianship. Dad dedicated his life to building that company. Emma stirred, her eyes fluttering open. I'm hungry, she declared. Richard smiled, embracing the moment of distraction. I'll whip up some sandwiches. In the cozy kitchen, Richard crafted lunch, all the while sifting through the myriad of insights he'd gathered. The Blackwood case unfolded as a labyrinth far more intricate than he had initially perceived. Charles Blackwood's architectural firm boasted a valuation exceeding $100 million. Additionally, Victoria's family wealth contributed significantly to that figure. The girls were not merely escaping an oppressive grandfather. They were escaping from someone who viewed them as a pathway to wealth. While they dined, Emma appeared to unwind, animatedly discussing a squirrel she had noticed outside the window. Lily stayed cautious, yet seemed to be less rigid than before. We require a strategy, Richard finally stated. Elizabeth has brought this into the open. We could vanish once more, Lily proposed. We've been there before. Is that the existence you envision for Emma? Richard inquired softly. Always fleeing, always concealing. Lily's calm finally shattered. What options remain? No one trusted our words before. The court favored him. He is Edmund Blackwood, a respected businessman and philanthropist, a grieving father devoted to caring for his orphaned granddaughters. Her words were tinged with bitterness. I trust you, Richard stated plainly. Lily glanced up, astonishment momentarily crossing her features. And I believe I can demonstrate that he's pursuing your inheritance, not your well-being, Richard went on. We must approach this with caution. Making a public move at this moment could jeopardize your safety. What do you propose? Lily inquired. We collect the facts, construct our argument. And when the moment arrives, we respond, both in the courtroom and in the public eye. Richard leaned in closer. However, we must first tackle the allegations of kidnapping. The phone began to ring. It's Mark calling. Richard responded, activating the speakerphone. You're in a tight spot, my friend, Marcus stated bluntly. The police are at your apartment right now with a search warrant. Elizabeth is executing this flawlessly. The worried former partner who uncovered the missing children. She's portraying you as fixated and spiteful. That's not true. Emma exclaimed, her voice laced with indignation. A moment of silence hung in the air before Marcus replied. Is that one of the girls? Yes, Richard confirmed. Marcus pondered the situation, recognizing that their decision to flee from their grandfather was rooted in a valid concern. His intentions to seize their inheritance altered the dynamics significantly. That changes things, Marcus remarked, deep in thought. Richard, I have a thought, but it carries some risk. Elizabeth is set to hold a press conference tomorrow regarding the missing Blackwood heiresses. If you were to arrive with the girls. Absolutely not, Lily interjected. We're not going anywhere near her. Richard pondered this. Indeed, Lily, that could be precisely the course we should pursue. Not to yield, but to seize the narrative. How? Lily inquired with a hint of skepticism. Richard locked eyes with her, a fierce resolve evident in his expression. By sharing your narrative, in your own voice, before anyone has the chance to stifle you once more. Darkness enveloped the cabin. Emma slept peacefully in the bedroom while Richard and Lily sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by laptops, legal documents, and hastily scribbled notes. For the past few hours, they had been crafting their counterattack with Marcus joining them via video call. Elizabeth's press conference is scheduled for noon tomorrow at the Harrington Media Center, Marcus reported, his expression serious on the screen. She presents it as a heartfelt request for the safe return of the Blackwood girls. Your grandfather will be present as well, Lily. Lily's jaw clenched. Absolutely, he will. The Concerned Grandfather Act is right up his alley. My contact at Child Services shared some intriguing details, Richard remarked, pushing a folder across the table. 3 distinct reports were submitted by your previous nanny, raising alarms about your grandfather's conduct following your parents' passing. Curiously, all 3 were dismissed without explanation. Olivia made an effort to assist us, and Lily quietly affirmed this. Grandfather created. She vanished as well. Marcus's eyebrows lifted. Disappeared as in. No, Lily clarified quickly. He threatened her family's immigration status. She had to leave the country. Richard jotted down a reminder. We must locate her. Her insights would be crucial. Already on it, Marcus replied. My investigator is currently tracking her down in Costa Rica. Lily examined the battle plan they had crafted. Do you truly believe this will succeed? She asked. It's a gamble, Richard conceded. But having you and Emma address the public directly alters the entire dynamic. The story shifts from a tale of a vengeful ex-fiancé to one of 2 children battling for their rights. What if grandfather tries to take us right there? Lily asked, her young voice tinged with worry despite her efforts to sound brave. Richard explained that they were arranging for Judge Catherine Winters to be present. As Gregory's sister, she is known for her fierce protection of children's interests. She has agreed to issue an emergency stay on any custody enforcement until a proper hearing can be conducted. Lily raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. The judges had favored grandfather in the past. They didn't have all the facts, Richard argued in response. And they had no idea. This. He pivoted his laptop to reveal an email from his investigator to her. Included were financial documents revealing significant amounts being shifted from Edmund Blackwood's accounts to offshore holdings soon after he obtained temporary guardianship. He's already maneuvering funds, Lily murmured, fury igniting in her gaze. Our parents' money? Exactly, Richard replied. And that's merely the start. My team uncovered a preliminary proposal to dissolve Blackwood Architects and offload its assets to a developer in Dubai. Lily's hands quivered ever so slightly. Father had a deep affection for that business. He created it from the ground up. Richard leaned over the table and softly placed his hand over hers. I understand the pain of losing something dear. I will ensure that doesn't occur. Not for you or Emma. Lily remained close, a gesture Richard interpreted as a profound indication of trust. However, Marcus interrupted, adding, there's one more thing. Elizabeth's press conference is a trap. She anticipates that you'll either remain concealed, which would imply guilt, or appear solo to justify yourself, which would suggest desperation. She won't foresee the presence of all three of us, Richard concluded. Precisely. She definitely won't anticipate you having evidence and legal representation prepared. Marcus smiled with a hint of grimness. The element of surprise is essential. My car will arrive at 11 a.m. at the back entrance, where there are no cameras. As the call concluded, Richard observed Lily suppressing a yawn. You should get some rest, he said softly. Tomorrow promises to be a daunting day, Lily paused. Richard? Yes. What drives you to do all this for us? Truly. Her gaze probed his, seeking any hint of insincerity. Most grown-ups expect something in exchange. Richard weighed his response thoughtfully. Upon discovering that I couldn't have children of my own, I believed that chapter of my life had closed. Then you and Emma entered the picture, and... He hesitated, feeling a swell of emotion in his throat. I'm assisting you because it's the honorable choice, yet also because you've reminded me of what truly counts. Lily observed him intently for a while before giving a slow nod. Good night, Richard, she said softly. For the first time, the fatigue in her eyes was substituted with an expression that resembled hope. A light fog enveloped Seattle as Richard's car arrived at the service entrance of the Harrington Media Center. The glass and steel structure towered over them, its contemporary design casting an imposing shadow. Inside, Elizabeth was poised to unveil her meticulously woven tale to the eager press. Are you both ready? Richard inquired, glancing back at Lily and Emma in the rear seat. Emma, adorned in a modest yet graceful blue dress, held tightly to her sister's hand. I'm scared, Lily, she whispered. Lily, in her modest green dress that exuded both grace and youth, squeezed her sister's hand with a comforting grip. Remember what we practiced, Em. Simply speak the truth. The truth, Emma echoed, her head nodding with gravity. Richard's phone vibrated, signaling a message from Marcus. Everything is ready. Judge Winters is in place. The media is completely gathered. Blackwood and Elizabeth took the stage. It's time, Richard announced, his voice unwavering even as tension twisted in his stomach. They stepped through the service door, where Marcus stood ready, impeccably dressed in a dark suit. His eyebrows lifted a fraction at the sight of the girls. Their transformation from the street children he'd heard about to composed young ladies was clearly unexpected for him. The press conference had just begun, he informed them, guiding the way through the back corridors. Elizabeth is delivering her opening statement at this moment. Your grandfather appears suitably worried for the cameras. Lily's expression shifted to one of distress upon hearing her grandfather's name. He has always excelled at the art of pretense. They arrived at a side entrance to the main conference room. Through the slightly ajar door, they caught a glimpse of Elizabeth at the podium, her face a flawless facade of worry as the camera flashes lit up her features. These vulnerable children must be reunited with their loving grandfather, Elizabeth asserted, her voice resonating through the speakers. My ex-fiancé, Richard Montgomery, in a deeply unsettling act of vengeance, has snatched these girls from their rightful guardian. Edmund Blackwood lingered nearby, his refined features reflecting a deep concern typical of a devoted grandfather. I just want my granddaughters back, he added when Elizabeth paused. They've been through so much already, losing their parents. Richard sensed Lily tense beside him. He rested a soft hand on her shoulder. Keep in mind, we shape the story from here on out. Questions, Elizabeth inquired of the gathered reporters. A woman in the front row raised her hand. Ms. Carter, how did you discover the identity of these children? Before Elizabeth could respond, Richard nodded to Marcus, who opened the door wide. Richard entered the conference room, with Lily and Emma walking confidently on either side of him. A collective gasp swept across the audience as cameras turned in their direction. Perhaps, Richard stated with clarity, his voice resonating in the now hushed space. You ought to inquire of the children themselves. Elizabeth's flawless demeanor wavered, her lips parting in surprise. Edmund Blackwood's expression turned steely, his gaze locking onto his granddaughters with a force that caused Emma to retreat, inching closer to Richard. Richard? Elizabeth swiftly regained her poise, her tone laced with insincere sympathy. I'm truly relieved that you've returned the girls unharmed. Mr. Blackwood has been quite anxious about it. I can imagine, Richard responded calmly. As whispers circulated among the gathered reporters, an unexpected confrontation began to unfold. Lily and Emma Blackwood had something to express. Richard led the girls toward the front of the room, where a second microphone awaited them. Security personnel shifted uneasily, glancing at Edmund Blackwood for guidance. He offered a subtle nod, evidently weighing the implications of forcibly removing the children on camera. Lily approached the microphone, her youthful face strikingly poised amidst the barrage of flashing cameras. I'm Lily Blackwood, and this is my sister Emma. We are here, safe and sound, and we have not been taken. The room filled with a flurry of inquiries. Lily paused, allowing the clamor to fade before she pressed on. After the loss of our parents, our grandfather transformed. He cut us off from the world, dictated every detail of our existence, and started to unravel all that our parents had created. Her voice was steady and unwavering. Upon learning of his intentions to tear us apart and sell our father's business, we fled. We found ourselves on the streets until Mr. Montgomery came to our rescue. Emma stepped forward, her small voice unexpectedly powerful through the microphone. Grandfather was cruel. He took away our pictures of Mommy and Daddy. He stated that we were no longer allowed to discuss them. Elizabeth made an effort to regain authority. It is evident that these children have been instructed. They are bewildered and deeply affected. I am not bewildered, Lily interjected, with conviction. And we possess proof. Marcus advanced, handing out folders to prominent reporters seated in the front row. The documents reveal financial transactions conducted by Edmund Blackwood right after he obtained temporary guardianship, redirecting funds from the Blackwood family trusts to offshore accounts. A tall, dignified woman stood up from her seat at the back. Judge Catherine Winters captured the room's focus without uttering a sound. In her role as a family court judge, she declared, I find these allegations deeply troubling. Therefore, I am issuing an immediate stay on all custody arrangements pending a full investigation. Edmund Blackwood's expression twisted in fury. This is absurd. These are my granddaughters. Indeed, we are, Lily responded, her tone unwavering as she met her grandfather's gaze. However, we are also the daughters of our parents. And we will not allow you to dismantle what they have created. The atmosphere crackled with inquiries as journalists surged ahead. Security established a shield around Richard and the girls. Amidst the turmoil, Richard locked eyes with Elizabeth. Her flawless exterior had shattered, giving way to a chilling rage as she understood that her meticulously crafted scheme had imploded dramatically. As they were led to a secluded room, Emma gazed up at Richard, her delicate features etched with seriousness. "Did we do well?" Richard crouched to meet her gaze, his heart swelling with pride and an unidentifiable emotion he wasn't yet prepared to confront. "You surpassed expectations, Emma. Your courage was remarkable." For the first time since their introduction, Lily's defenses fell away entirely. She wrapped her arms around Richard's neck in an impulsive embrace. "Thank you for believing in us," she whispered, her voice finally reflecting the innocence of her true age. Over her shoulder, Richard observed reporters clustering around Judge Winters, who spoke with resolute authority. Edmund Blackwood was being interrogated by two stern-looking men in suits, whom Richard identified as investigators from the district attorney's office. The struggle wasn't finished, but the initial significant triumph was theirs. The weeks after the Y press conference flew by in a whirlwind of legal meetings, court appearances, and adaptations to a new way of life. Richard's penthouse, previously a testament to sleek minimalism, had undergone a striking transformation. Emma's vibrant drawings now decorated the refrigerator, colorful chapter books filled the shelves, and a small piano occupied a corner of the living room. Richard sat at his desk, immersed in paperwork, when a soft knock broke his concentration. Lily appeared in the doorway, her demeanor grave. "The lawyers have called," she informed him. Judge Winters reached her conclusion. Richard acknowledged her with a nod, inviting her to step inside. "I just received the email." "And?" Lily's voice revealed her unease, even as she tried to maintain her calm facade. "Your grandfather has been permanently removed as a guardian," Richard confirmed softly. "The court has appointed an independent trustee to oversee the Blackwood assets until you both reach adulthood." Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. "What about the company?" "Dad's company?" Richard reassured her that Blackwood Architects is still standing strong. "In fact, Marcus and I have been in discussions with your father's former partners. They aim to uphold his legacy and vision." Lily nodded, taking in this information. In recent weeks, Richard had observed her slowly embracing her childhood, even as the protective instincts shaped by their experiences on the streets lingered. "There's another matter we must address," Richard said with caution. "The court is required to appoint you a permanent guardian." Lily felt a wave of tension wash over her. "They won't separate us, will they?" "They promised." "No one is separating you and Emma," Richard interjected softly, "but choices must be made regarding your future." Before he could elaborate, Emma rushed into the room, her face glowing with enthusiasm. "Richard, I've completed my piano practice. Would you like to listen?" Richard smiled. "Absolutely, I would." Emma took his hand, leading him into the living room where the petite piano stood ready. Lily trailed behind, her earlier unease momentarily forgotten. Emma settled herself on the bench, her delicate fingers hovering above the keys with a sense of purpose. The melody that flowed was straightforward yet infused with genuine focus. It was for Elise, the piece Emma had once shared was taught to her by her mother. As she concluded, Richard clapped with genuine appreciation. "That was beautiful, Emma." A trace of melancholy crept into her voice as she replied, "Mommy used to play it much better. But she mentioned that I was picking things up quickly." "She would be so proud of you," Richard said gently. Emma smiled brightly at him before darting off to gather her drawing materials, leaving Richard and Lily together. Lily observed quietly, noting that she felt a sense of happiness in this place. "Are you?" Richard asked, turning to face her. Lily took a moment to ponder the question thoughtfully. "I no longer feel fear." "That's a change." "Lily," Richard started, selecting his words thoughtfully. Contemplation has consumed my thoughts regarding the future that awaits us all. You want us to remain, she articulated plainly. Indeed, I do, Richard confessed. These past weeks, your presence has transformed everything for me. Lily observed his face with the keen insight that had captivated him from their very first encounter. You never imagined you would have a family. No, he agreed. When I discovered I couldn't have children, I believed that chapter was closed for good. And now? Now I understand that family isn't always what you envision it to be. Richard's voice softened. It has a way of catching you off guard. A small, sincere smile, still uncommon but increasingly frequent, blossomed on Lily's face. Emma would appreciate that. She already considers this place home. What about you? Richard inquired softly. Lily surveyed the apartment, absorbing the quiet shifts that signified their existence. I believe, she started, her voice laced with contemplation. I believe our parents would wish for us to find a place of safety. With someone who truly cares for us, not merely, our inheritance. Richard felt his heart swell with a warmth he had never known before. I've submitted the initial paperwork for adoption, he said with caution. Yet, only if that is truly what you both desire. For an extended pause, Lily remained quiet. Then, with the gravity of someone facing a significant choice, she gave a nod. I believe that would bring us great joy. Emma's voice echoed from the hallway, filled with enthusiasm. May I call you Dad, then? Just when life seemed to find its steady pace, an unforeseen letter arrived, poised to shake everything up. Richard gazed at the official-looking envelope, a sense of dread settling in his stomach. What is it? Marcus inquired, observing Richard's expression during their lunch meeting. Catherine Newman is seeking custody of the girls, Richard responded, his voice strained. She asserts that she is their mother's second cousin. Marcus frowned. After 3 months. How convenient, now that the publicity has faded and their financial future is assured. Indeed, Richard nodded solemnly. The hearing is set for next week. That night, Richard wrestled with the best way to inform the girls. He discovered them in the living room, Lily assisting Emma with her math homework. Their effortless bond, the manner in which they had turned his cold penthouse into a cozy haven, made the thought of losing them intolerable. We need to talk, he said softly, settling into a chair across from them. Lily instantly felt that something was amiss. What could it be? Richard detailed the circumstances with utmost caution, observing their expressions for any signs of emotion. Emma's eyes brimmed with tears, while Lily's demeanor shifted into a steely shield he hadn't witnessed in weeks. She doesn't even know us, Emma whispered. Why would she want us? Money, Lily answered bluntly. Now that grandfather can't control the trusts, she wants to try. Richard nodded. That's what my attorney believes as well. Emma held her teddy bear close. I don't want to be with her. I want to stay with you. We should run, Lily suggested suddenly, her voice taking on an urgent quality that alarmed Richard. Tonight. We accomplished it previously. However, Richard interjected with conviction. Running isn't the solution. We will confront this together, through the law. But what if we fail? Lily questioned, her fear seeping through her carefully maintained exterior. Richard knelt in front of her, softly grasping her hands. Lily, I assure you of this. I will always stand up for you both. But I need your trust in me. Running now would only jeopardize our position. Lily scrutinized his expression closely, looking for any hint of dishonesty. Do you genuinely think we can succeed? I do, Richard confirmed. Judge Winters is aware of your narrative. The proof concerning your grandfather pertains to anyone aiming to seize your inheritance. What? If, Emma started uncertainly. What if we express our choice for you? Richard smiled gently. That holds significant weight, Emma. The court takes into account the wishes of children, particularly those who are articulate and intelligent like you both. As darkness enveloped the house, Richard lingered in the doorway of the girls' room, observing their peaceful slumber. Emma held her teddy bear tightly, while Lily instinctively reached out toward her sister, a silent guardian even in dreams. In that stillness, Richard felt an unwavering resolve to protect the bond of his cherished family. These girls had mended a part of him he hadn't even known was fractured. He would not allow anyone to separate them. The family court fell silent as Judge Winters examined the final documents laid out before her. Richard sat with Lily and Emma on one side of the room, while Catherine Newman and her attorney occupied the opposite side. The woman's designer attire and immaculate manicure did little to conceal the shrewd glint in her eyes as she surveyed the girls. "Before I announce my decision," Judge Winters stated, "I'd like to hear from Lily and Emma Blackwood." Lily stood tall, her stance unwavering even in the face of her anxiety. "Your Honor, when our parents passed away, we lost it all. Not merely them, but also our sense of security, our home, our very identities." Her youthful voice resonated distinctly throughout the courtroom. "Before encountering Richard, we were merely existing and enduring." Emma stepped beside her sister, her tiny hand firmly grasped in Lily's. "Richard values us beyond mere financial transactions. He supports me with piano lessons and genuinely listens when I share my thoughts about my parents. He even keeps their picture by my bed, allowing me to say goodnight to them." Judge Winters considered this carefully. "And what of Ms. Newman? She is your family. We have not encountered her prior to the hearing." "Last week, Lily spoke the truth. She never attended our parents' funeral. She never sought us out when we were homeless." Richard experienced a wave of pride at their poise and lucidity. Judge Winters addressed Catherine Newman. "Ms. Newman, you have expressed a profound concern for your cousin's children, yet there is no indication that you made any effort to reach out to them prior to the court securing their significant inheritance." Newman shifted in his seat, a hint of discomfort evident. "I had only just become aware of their predicament." Even with the widespread attention from national news, Judge Winters arched an eyebrow. Richard held his breath as Judge Winters reviewed her notes one final time. "It is the finding of this court that the best interests of Lily and Emma Blackwood will be served by granting full legal guardianship to Richard Montgomery, with adoption proceedings to follow." She looked directly at the girls. "Your parents would surely admire your bravery." Outside the courthouse, beneath a rare glimpse of Seattle sunshine, Emma threw herself into Richard's embrace. "We triumphed. We get to stay together." Richard wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, then reached out to include Lily, who stepped into the embrace without a second thought. "Now we're truly a family," Emma proclaimed. "We've been a family for some time now," Richard said softly. "Today simply makes it official." Later that afternoon, in the garden of what was now genuinely their home, Richard and the girls planted a young cherry tree. "In memory of Charles and Victoria Blackwood," Richard said as Emma gently nestled the soil around the sapling's base. "Thus, they will forever be woven into the fabric of our new beginning." Lily, who had held her composure throughout the poignant day, finally let her tears flow. "Thank you for not giving up on us," she whispered. Richard knelt beside her. "Thank you for showing me what family truly means." As the three of them stood together in the golden afternoon light, Richard pondered the journey that had led them to this moment. What had started as a misguided effort to save face at an ex's wedding had transformed into the most significant chapter of his life. Family transcended blood or biology. It transcended the notion of loss or unattainable desires. Family was a daily commitment to one another, embracing both challenges and happiness. It involved the creation of something fresh from the remnants of what once was. It was, in essence, a tale of love.